Boom 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 boom.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. So we're kicking off today grappling with this really big question, isn't it? What makes a story stick? You know, truly timeless, impactful across cultures, generations. Is there some kind of secret sauce beyond just, like, plot formulas?
That's exactly it. That's the heart of our deep dive today. We're digging into Robert McKee's, well, frankly, seminal book, Story, Substance, Structure, Style, and the Principles of Screenwriting.
Classic.
Definitely. And we're focusing specifically on those foundational bits. Notes on the text, the 10-author story arc, the introduction, and the famous story issue.
Right. And our mission for you listening is really to try and uncover this mysterious essence. You know, what makes stories work? And maybe more importantly, how can you take these insights, these profound ideas, and actually apply them, whether that's, I don't know, a really important email, a business presentation, maybe even your own writing?
Are there secrets beyond formulas? Let's find out.
Okay, so where does McKee start?
Well, he jumps right in pretty much on page 1. He makes this really critical distinction. Story, he insists, is not about rigid, paint-by-numbers formula.
That's not formulas.
Yeah.
So what is it about then?
It's about what he calls immortal and universal forms. Think fundamental principles. These are the core building blocks, the underlying structures that don't really change over time.
Universal forms versus commercial recipes. That's a phrase he uses, right? So how does he differentiate? Why do the forms last when the recipes, like, fade?
Yeah, it's a key distinction. Those commercial recipes, they're the do this, then do that guides you sometimes see, especially coming out of Hollywood. They promise success, but McKee says they can't replace the real skeletal structure, the form.
Okay.
The form is more fundamental. Think of it like, are you making something salty or sweet? That's the form. The specific recipe for, I don't know, chocolate lava cake, that's the recipe. One's about the basic nature, the other's just one specific way of doing it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you really see that contrast in Hollywood, like you mentioned. McKee points this out too, doesn't he? He uses examples like, what were they? Die Hard.
Yep, Die Hard, pure action.
Yeah.
Then The Lion King, totally different animation. And Groundhog Day.
Right, Groundhog Day. Not today's actually yesterday. My mistake. So action, animation, comedy. On the surface, they look completely unrelated.
Exactly. Wildly diverse. But McKee's core argument is that underneath all that surface variety, there's a common universal structure. That structure is what makes them all stories.
Okay, so like music.
Precisely his analogy. Just like music has fundamental principles, melody, harmony, rhythm, that separate it from just random noise, story has basic principles too. They form its skeleton.
And the different genres, the styles, they're just different flavors, different ways of expressing that underlying form.
You got it. Different interpretations of that universal structure. And understanding that structure, that's the real key, according to McKee.
But if there is this universal structure, why is writing stories so darn difficult? We consume them constantly, right? Movies, books, even just anecdotes friends tell us.
Yeah, that's the paradox, isn't it? It comes back to that music analogy again. It's one thing to listen to music, even appreciate it deeply. It's another thing entirely to sit down and compose it.
True. Big difference.
And McKee kind of hints at one reason why this might be, especially with modern writing education. Maybe there's sometimes too much focus on the surface stuff. You know, the embellishments, the style, the polish.
So the deep structure, the bones of the thing.
Exactly. Focusing on the paint job before the engine is built, maybe, which might explain why creating something structurally sound is such a challenge.
It really makes you think. You look at films like Casablanca, Rashomon, Unforgiven. I mean, they couldn't be more different in style, setting, tone, yet we all recognize them as brilliant stories. Why? What's the common thread there?
Well, McKee's answer to that why boils down to one powerful concept, truth, or the specific term he uses is hakikat.
Hakikat. That's an interesting word choice. Does he explain why that specific term?
He does. It suggests something deeper than just factual accuracy. Hakikat implies the inherent reality, the essential meaning behind the facts. For McKee, just listing what happened, the sequence of events, that isn't story.
Okay, so facts aren't enough.
Not nearly enough. The crucial thing is what we think about what happened. It's the writer's interpretation, the meaning they extract from the events. That's the hakikat.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, the Joan of Arc example he uses is perfect. The historical facts, what happened to her, they're basically fixed. But look at the plays about her. Anil finds one meaning in those facts. George Bernard Shaw finds a completely different one. Brecht, another one entirely.
Same events, different truths.
Precisely. Each playwright extracts a different human meaning, a different Hikâye, from the identical raw material. The story becomes powerful when it answers, what did this sequence of events mean? What internal truth did it reveal for the character or for us?
So it's about the interpretation, the significance.
Yes. And think about how powerful that perspective is for you. Take a business presentation again. You're not just listing sales figures. Those are the facts. You're explaining what they mean.
Right. What's the story behind the numbers? What's the deeper implication?
Exactly. That's your Hikâye for the audience. That interpretation is what makes the data resonate, what makes it a compelling narrative rather than just a data dump.
That's a great connection, making the facts meaningful. Okay, so truth, Hikâye, interpretation. That's key. But then McKee throws in another condition, right? He says even a huge change like life-saving rain after a drought in East Africa. That's not necessarily a story event on its own. Why not? Seems pretty significant.
It is significant, but it might lack a crucial element, causality linked to character action. If the rain just happens, if it's accidental from the character's perspective, it's not a story event in his specific definition.
So randomness doesn't cut it.
Not for a story event. For McKee, a genuine story event happens when a character is facing some kind of conflict, they make a choice, they take an action, and that action directly causes a meaningful change in their values. You know, from positive to negative, negative to positive, good to bad, life to death.
So the change isn't just random luck, good or bad. It has to be earned, or I guess caused by the character's struggle, their decisions, their actions.
Exactly. It's directly linked to their inner world, their will. The change is a result won or lost through conflict. That's what gives it meaning within the story's structure.
And this is different from just plot.
Big difference. Plot, he'd say, often just answers, and then what happened? A story event demands, why did it happen? And crucially, what did it mean because the character did X? Causality is the engine.
Okay, I see. The why and the meaning linked to character action, that's much clearer.
And think how practical that is. If you're writing, say, that critical email about a project delay,
right,
instead of just saying, problem A happened, then problem B, you frame it causally. We encountered obstacle X, we chose strategy Y to overcome it, but that action led directly to consequence Z, which now means the deeper impact.
Okay, so you're building a mini-narrative, showing the cause and effect driven by choices. That feels much more compelling than just a list of issues.
It is. It gives it structure, meaning.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to why understanding these principles, grasping the meaning, the Hikâye and the causal links, is so valuable for you.
Yeah, you can see it now. Whether you're trying to figure out why a movie worked so well or you're trying to make your own stuff. Presentations, blog posts, even just explaining something important.
Yeah.
More effective.
Absolutely. It's about developing that structural awareness, being able to build those meaningful causal connections between the events you're describing. It genuinely strengthens how you communicate, how you tell any kind of story.
So to kind of wrap up what McKee is laying out in these foundational sections, it's really not about finding some magic formula to copy.
Yeah.
Forget that. The real power, the secret, if you want to call it that, it lies in understanding these universal human structures of story. It's about the search for meaning, that Hikâye, and crucially, understanding why things happen because of choices and actions.
Causality.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's not just what happened, it's why it happened and what it all means.
Okay, so let's leave everyone with a final thought to chew on, building on this.
Well, McKee often talks about story as a metaphor for life itself. It's our fundamental way of trying to make sense of the chaos, right? Finding patterns, finding meaning in the randomness of existence.
That's a deep thought.
It is. So maybe a challenge for you, the listener. The next time you watch a movie, read a book, or even just hear someone tell you about something interesting that happened to them, try to look beneath the surface.
Don't just follow the plot.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what's the deeper truth being hinted at here? What interpretation, what Hikâye is the storyteller trying to convey? What human experience are they really whispering about? And can you spot the causal links? The meaningful connections between the choices made and the outcomes that followed?
Yes. Try looking at stories through that lens. It can unlock a whole new level of understanding, not just of fiction, but of how we all try to make sense of the world every single day.
Boom 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 boom.